Hello guys, welcome into another video. Today is a big subject. We are covering saving and loading, and there's a lot to go over here. There are also a lot of prerequisites for this. So the main one being the main menu and pause menu that we created in a previous episode. So I'll be sure to leave leave a link to that below. But there's also a lot of other things that you might want to check out if you haven't already, because I'm going to show you guys how to save not just the character's location, but also the state of all of the different things like these doors, puzzles, everything in the environment here, keys, and the state of everything like that, so that we can save all of this. And then when we reload the game, everything will be in the current state. This is one of those subjects that's really kind of hard to cover in one video, and really kind of hard to cover something that will work for everyone, because you really have to adapt the system to your own systems. Because of course I'm going to show you how to, set it up on previous puzzles and things like that I've made, but you're going to have systems and variables and things like that you're going to need to save that are unique to you. So I'm going to do my best to break all this down and try to make it as easy as possible to understand, but just know that there's a lot to this, so don't feel bad if you don't really get everything right away. Honestly, it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around all of this, so yeah, it's a really big subject. Don't feel bad if you don't get all of it right away. I also just want to say a huge thank you to all of you so much for your amazing support. I cannot tell you guys how much I appreciate just coming here, leaving a like, subscribing, commenting. It all helps so much, and I can't believe how quick our channel has grown. I really, really appreciate it so much. And I want to give just a massive shout out to everyone at Patreon, all of the amazing patrons that have supported me over there. Patreon.com/HowbotStudios. You can check out the link for that below if you want to support me in that way and get access to, early access to all of the videos, and also a lot of things like assets that I create, project files, all that stuff is over there. So I really, really appreciate all of the amazing support there. But yeah, without further ado, I think let's just go ahead and jump in and get started. Okay, so here we are in a little test level that I've created, and I've got a few different items in here that we are going to set up to save the states of, as well as our character and all of that stuff. Now, again, like I mentioned in the intro, this is really kind of a hard thing to explain in a way that you can just copy exactly what I'm doing, because your game is obviously going to be set up differently. Even if you're using the same doors and puzzles and things like that I'm using, you're still going to have systems that are going to deviate from the way that I'm doing them. And so you really need to just have a good understanding of how the system works. So I'm going to do my best to really try to break everything down as we go. But let me just show you what we have here first. So we have a door, or we have three different doors. These two are locked. This one is just a regular door that just opens and closes, just so we can test it for the different states and everything. In order to open this door, we have to solve this puzzle by turning this twice, and then it should unlock that door. And then this door is locked with a key, so once we pick up that key, we can use the key and then unlock the door. Okay, so we've got a lot of different things to save, and let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I want to do is let's actually create a separate folder for our save system. I'm just going to call this save system, so that we can kind of keep everything organized here. And we're going to need, actually, let's go to our widgets first and open up our main menu and our pause menu. On our main menu, I'm going to change a couple of things here. This is really just kind of trying to make it a little bit, or make a little bit more sense for the way things are worded here. Since we're only going to have just one save slot, essentially, I think changing this to continue game would make more sense. And maybe on start, we just change this to new game, because when you start up the game, you're really ever going to only want to choose new game or continue game here. So I'm just going to change this, call this button new game, and then the text we will call new game. And then for our load here, I'll change the button name to continue game, and then the text to continue game as well. Okay, and then for our pause menu, let me actually compile and save that. Here, I just want to add save game. We can leave load game the same, but I'm just going to duplicate the load game button, and then this top one, I'll rename this to save. And then for the text, we'll change that to read save game. Load game is fine. I'm just going to change the name here since it put that underscore just back to regular load game. Okay, now the next thing, let's go ahead and create an interface that we can use, because we're going to have a couple of different functions here that we're going to use in a variety of ways. So this will make it a little bit easier. Let's just search for interface, and we're going to call this BPI save. Open that up, and we'll need a few different functions here. So the first one I'm going to call save game data. Next, I'm going to call load game data. And then one more I'm going to call send out save. Compile and save, and we can go ahead and close that. Now, if we go back to our main menu, I need to change new game. Let's go to the graph. So let's see, new game. First of all, I need to set this to be the starting map instead of this first person map. So let me just find starting map. And then one other thing that I am going to need to do, since I created this using the first person character template, and I've changed it to use our custom character that I've imported here. So just to make sure that we don't run into any issues and that we're using the right controller and everything when we load into the game, I'm going to get player controller, and I'm going to set show mouse cursor to false. And then out of player controller, I'm also going to set input mode to game only. And then we will load our starting map there. Okay. Now we need to actually implement our continue button because I don't have anything set up for that. So let's get the continue button, and on clicked, we're going to do kind of the same thing that we did here. Actually, all of this. So I'm just going to copy and paste. But we are going to want to actually load the game here. So we need to actually create a couple of more blueprints. We are going to be using a custom game instance for kind of like a central hub to save all of our stuff here. The game instance kind of runs outside of the normal hierarchy of your game blueprints, and it's going to make things a little bit easier for us to use a custom one here. So I'm just going to go to blueprint class, and we're going to type in game instance, and we'll call this BP game instance. And then we also are going to need an actual save game. So if we search for save game here, we can use that. We'll call that BP save game. And let's open up our game instance. And we also need to actually set our project to use that game instance. And we have to do that in the project settings here. Under maps and modes, under here, game instance class, we want to choose our BP game instance that we created. Okay, so now we've got that set up. Let's go in here and we need to do a couple of things. So in our game instance, first of all, we need to add our interface that we created. So the BPI save. That'll give us access to our functions here. And we're going to need our save game data and our load game data. And then what we want to do on begin play is basically call our load game data, but we don't have event begin play in the game instance. It is called event init or event initialize. So on event initialize, we want to call our load game here. Load game data. Okay, so as soon as we basically start the game, we're going to call this event and call whatever is going to run off of that. Now, for our save game data here, we can use a built-in function called save game to slot. And there are two different ones here. There's an async and a regular save game to slot. I'm going to use the regular save game to slot. You can test this out yourself and read more into it. But one is basically going to save everything right when we click save, or right when we execute this event. And it's going to wait until that is actually saved to continue anything else. The async save game to slot would be more for like if you're creating a checkpoint or something, or like an auto save, and you're moving throughout the world and you want to have things kind of save parallel to the rest of the game running. You can use either one, but to be honest, I haven't really noticed much difference. Now, if you have a massive game with tons and tons of things to save, then you might notice a little bit of a slowdown whenever you are using this regular save game to slot. But again, that's one of those things I would just test on your own and see what works best for you. It's very easy to come back and change this if you want to. Okay, so from here, we need an actual variable for the slot. So I'm going to drag out and promote that to a variable. And we'll just call that game slot name. And now this is very important. Make sure that you hit compile and you actually give the slot name a actual name. So I'm just going to call it slot01 because if you don't do this, then this is empty and it won't actually save anything to your game slot. Okay, the next thing, we need the save game object, and we're going to get that by getting a reference to our BP save game that we created. And we'll do that in the load game data here. Now, when we load the game data, we want to basically run a check here. And we want to get does save game exist? And then for our slot name, that will be the game slot there. And then out of the return value, we will run a branch. So we're checking if the save game does exist. If it does, we're going to do something here. And actually, we're going to need another variable called should load. And right here, we're going to set this variable to true. So if it finds a save game, then we're going to set should load to true. And then we are going to load a game from slots. And again, you have async and regular here. I'm just going to use regular. And we'll plug the game slot name in there. And then from here, on the return value, we're going to cast to BP save game. and promote this to a variable. And this is going to be our save game reference. Okay, so now this save game reference, we can get that and we can plug that into our save game object for our save game to slot here. And then on the false here, what we want to do is if there is not a save game, we actually want to create save game object like this. And then we want to choose our class, which is the BP save game that we created. And then we want to set that to the save game reference. So we'll set, plug that in like that, and we are good to go. So compile and save. And now we can go back to our main menu. And on the continue game here, at the very end, we can, actually we need to get a reference to our game instance. So let's get events construct, and we can right click to get game instance. And then we can cast to BP game instance. And then we can promote that to a variable for our game instance ref. Okay. And then down here, we can get our game instance ref. And we want to call load game data, the function here. Okay, so basically what we're doing here, when we click continue game, we are sending a message to our game instance to say, hey, we want to run the load game data, and then we'll run through this here to check if we have the game slot. If so, we will continue to load the game. If not, we'll create the save game object here. Okay, so that should be good for our main menu. And then we want to do the same thing on the pause menu as well. So on the pause menu, we need to actually implement our save and load buttons here. So let's do the save first. So on clicked, we need to get our reference to game instance. So event construct get game instance, cast to BP game instance, and promote that to a variable. Game instance ref. Whoops. It's not really a big deal that I capitalized that, but just for my own sake. Okay. So now when we click save game, what we actually want to do is get all actors with interface. And we're going to get the BPI save interface. And from there, we're going to call the send out save message and then plug our out actors into our target there. So when we click the save game button, we will basically send out a message to run this event on any other actor that has this interface here. Okay, and then our load game button on clicked, we're going to basically do all of this. So I'm just going to copy and paste. And then we want to get our game instance ref and call load game data. Okay, compile and save. And that should be good. So let's actually just test this out from our main menu so our our save menu is not going to work, or the actual save is not going to work yet. But I just want to make sure that the menu is working and loading us into the right map and everything like that. So new game, you're loading in here. That looks good. One thing I did notice, let's do this on my character. We have our HUD is being created on begin play. And so when I load this in, you can actually see my HUD here. And it's not a huge deal just having this little dot, but if you had like a health bar and other HUD elements in here, then that would obviously not look very good. So what I will do is a little bit of a hacky way to fix this, but this will work. We will get current level by name, and we'll just check if that is equal to the name of the starting level, which is going to be starting map, I think I called it. Yeah, starting map. So get a branch here. And so we'll only have this create this widget if that is true there. Okay, so now when I click on play, we don't see our HUD here. And then if I click start or new game, then it creates our widget and we're good to go. Okay. Oh, I didn't actually check. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so we've got save game, load game, everything looks good there. Okay, so I think we are ready at this point to actually start saving some stuff. So let's start with our character, and let's kind of break this down how we're going to do this. And this is going to be pretty much the same or kind of similar for most actors that we want to save things on. So the general idea with this is on event begin play, we're going to, first of all, need to get a reference to our game instance. So get game instance, cast to BP game instance, and promote this to a variable, game instance ref. And then from here, we want to check this variable right here. So we can actually get that from here, get should load, and we'll run a branch here. And if that is true, then we will actually load the data that we need to. But first of all, we need to actually create a function, or we need to create a couple of functions that are going to handle our creating and loading our data. So I'm going to create a function and call this create save data. And I'm going to create another one called load game data. And then one more thing that I want to do, we need a way to tell the game when we click on the pause menu, when we click save, we need a way to send out that save. And so that's what we're going to use that interface for. So we need to add our interface here, BPI save. Let's see, load game data. What did I do here? Oh, I named these the same thing. So you can't have two of the same functions named the same thing. Let's call this load save. Whoops. Load save data. And then load game data is from our interface. There we go. That should be fine. Okay, so the two functions that we created, create save data and load save data. Even that is pretty similar to, you got to be careful with, obviously it can be easy to get these mixed up if you name these two similar, which I did kind of name those pretty similar, but yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, so what we want to do here, if that returns true that we should load, then we want to call load save data here. And these two functions are going to be where we actually store, or not really store, but where we handle creating the data that we want to save and then sending that to our BP save game. So on create save data here, what we're going to do is get our reference to our game instance. And then from there, we will get the save game reference. And then from here, we will actually get the data or the variables that we're going to save, but we haven't actually created those yet. So if we go back to BP save game, we don't have anything in here yet. And what we want to do is create a variable for each thing that we want to save from whatever actor we're going to save. Now, in the case of our character, there's going to be a few different things that we're going to want to save. And what I'm going to save here may be different from what you want to save. The things that I'm going to want to save, and probably you are going to want to save, are going to be the location of our character and the rotation. So like when we go in here and we want to save, we want to be able to save our location and then whichever way our character is facing, right? So those are going to be pretty much universal, but there's probably going to be other things that you want to save. In my case, I probably need to save the keys. When we pick up a key, that adds this variable to our to this array here, so I need to save that. But you may have like a health variable that you want to save, or you may have an inventory item or different things like that. So this really just kind of depends on what you want to save. And the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to create a new folder and call this structs, because we'll use structures to save these variables. So I'm going to create a new structure and call this s_player. And then in here, we can create a list of variables that we want to save. So for me, I want to save our location. I want to save our rotation and the keys. Okay, and then we need to figure out what type of variables these are. So for location, that will be a transform. Rotation will be a rotator. And then the keys will be a text, I believe it is. Yeah, and then it's going to be an array. So I need to make sure that that is an array. All right, so let's save, and now we can close that. And now we need to add that variable into our BP save game. So let's go here, and we can name this player. And then we need to find s_player and add that, compile and save. Then let's go back to our player character here. Now from my save game reference, I can call that player, get player. And then from here, I want to actually set the variables. So there's a few different ways you can do this, but if we type set, I'm going to use the set by reference variable. And then I can right click and split to this to get access to my variables there. Okay, and then we just need to plug in the values for these things that we want to save. So for our location, we can get actor transform, plug that in. For the rotation, I believe we can get control rotation like that. And then for my keys, that will just be the variable that I already have. I can get that and plug that in like so. And then we'll need a return node here. Okay, and let's compile and save. Okay, so We also need to actually send out our save here. So I'll click that to implement this event. And here we want to call our create save data. This is the function that we just created here. And then we want to get our game instance ref. And then from there, we want to save game data. Okay. Okay. And then let's see. Yeah, we should be good. So now we need to handle the load save data. And we're going to do basically the same thing here. We need to get these first of all. So I'm just going to copy and paste. But here we need to actually set these variables. So I can break this and then we can set these variables. So to set our location, we can set actor transform like so. For the rotation, we actually need to get player controller and set control rotation. Okay. And then, let's see, let's do this. And then for our keys, we can just set this to this variable here. And then we will return node here. And then I'm just going to highlight this, press Q to try and keep it tidy, and compile and save. Okay, so let's just kind of walk through what we did here, because I know that was a lot. On begin play, we're getting the reference to our game getting the reference to our game instance. And then we're checking if we should load or not. If we should, then we're going to load our save game data, which we are getting the variables from that struct that we made that is stored on our BP save game. And we're setting whatever variables those are. In this case, the location, rotation, and our key variable. When we actually create a save, so when we are on our pause menu and we click save, that sends out a signal to whatever actor has this interface, which has this event. That sends out a signal to run our function that we just created to create save data. So we're getting these variables that we have and we're setting that to our struct there. And then after that, we are sending the save game data to our game instance ref. So back in here, save game data, that is actually saving the game to the slots. Okay, so if we set all that up right, we should be able to test this out. Let's go ahead and do a new game. And I'm just going to move over here. And I'm going to press save game. And let's move and try and load. Okay, there we go. So we can try it one more time. Go back here. Save game. Let's actually try quitting to the main menu. And now if we continue, then we're loading back here. And if we quit completely, play and then do new or continue game, we are coming back here. Let's just try doing a new game now. Okay, so that is a little bit of an issue. We go to new game. We want to actually not load there. So let's take a look at what's going on there. Okay, so what we forgot to do in new game here, we want to get our game instance and set should load to be false. Okay. So now when we click on new game, it's going to set that to, it's going to set should load to be false. And that way when, for example, like on our character here, it's going to not load the save data. So now if we click new game, we're going to start right here instead of loading that actual save. So save, and if we resume, load again, we're back there. Okay, so this is working for our character anyway. Now we need to get this working for the individual actors. And this is where it starts to get a little bit more tricky, because we need to really think through what's going on here and figure out what we need to save. So let's start with our door. I'm going to open up the door. And this is going to be somewhat similar to kind of all of the actors that we're going to save here. We're going to want to get the reference to our game instance on begin play. So at the end of my events here, I'm going to get game instance cast to BP game instance and promote that to a variable game instance ref. And then from here, we want to, let me actually compile first, get should load, run a branch here, and then we need to create our functions for create save data and load save data. And then I also need my interface. So BPI save. Back on our event graph, we're going to want to send out our save. Whoops. Didn't mean to actually open that up. And when we send out our save, we want to create save data and then get our reference to game instance and save game data. Okay. So we've got everything implemented there. Here, if this is true, we want to load save data. Okay, and then we need to actually set up our variables that we want to save. But we're going to save those in a struct. So let's create a new struct. Let's see, structure s doors. Now we need to think about what we want to save. So I am going to want to save whether it's locked or not, whether it's closed. The door key ID, probably will need that. Let's just start with those. So locked, door closed, and then key ID, and that is going to be text. Okay. And then we need to add that variable to our BP save game. So doors, that will be s underscore doors. And we actually want this to be an array because we have multiple doors. And that's going to be a little bit different how we set this up. So for our create save data, we will first get we can just do it right here. Get our instance ref, get our save game ref, and then get doors. Okay, and then since this is an array, this is going to be slightly different. We're going to add, and then we can split this to get all of our variables here. And then we'll return And now we just need to plug these in. So locked, door closed, and our key ID. Okay. And then for our load, what we're going to do is copy this again, copy, paste. And out of here, we're going to get a reference. And then we can split this. And then we'll need to set everything here. So locked, door closed, and the key ID. And then one other thing that we need to do with arrays, we need to drag out of here and clear, or I'm sorry, not clear, remove index. And then return. Okay. So we should be good there. Actually, there's one thing that I could think of that we will still need. We're going to need the rotation of the door because, well, you know what? Let's just try it right now. Let's see if this is actually working. So let me get the key. Okay, yeah, that seems kind of weird. Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, we got all kinds of errors here. So actually what might be the issue, we might need to delete the save since we technically had a save and we were loading in a save there. So if you open up your project folder here, and if you look for the saved folder and then the saved games, this right here is your actual save game that is being saved to your hard drive. So I'm just going to delete that so that we have a fresh new game here. Now this is locked. If I unlock this, and now if we save and load, okay, yeah, something still doesn't seem quite right. Let me see. Okay, yeah, I think I know what's going on. Because we're not actually saving the rotation. So right now the door is unlocked, but it thinks the door should be in an open position. So when I press E, it's technically putting that back to the closed position. And then when I press E again, it's now opening it. So what we need to do is also save the rotation. So let's see, let's go here and let's add rotation. That will be a rotator. And then for create here, we're going to need to get the door, get relative rotation, and that will plug into our rotation there. And then for load, we will get the door and set relative rotation. And this will plug in here. And then we'll just need to put this in between these two here. Okay. Let's try this out now. And also I'm going to clear the save again. So I'm just going to delete this just to make sure that we don't have any issues since we're, or otherwise we would load in with that save. So let's play, take the key, unlock the door will open. Let's also open this door and save. And now let's press load. There we go. So now the doors are open. Okay, so now that's an issue. But we are getting there. Let me just save, load. Yeah, okay. So I think I might know what the issue is there. This is, again, one of the things that you're going to just have to test a lot of things as you practice this, or as you try this out and get your own save load system set up, because everyone is using, different systems, different doors, things like that. I think in our timeline here, we need to have this reverse from end, because we are loading in and it's not recognizing that we've run through this timeline once. So it's just trying to reverse it, but it's already in the closed position, or it thinks it's in the closed position. So if we reverse from end, I think that might fix it. Let me just delete our save again. And let's try this. We can actually just try this one. So save, load. Okay. We're getting some different results. What we may actually need to do is save our dot product for this. Okay, so it worked to there. Yeah, okay. Let's try also saving our dot products, because that could be another issue that it's not yeah. Actually, I think that's it, because it is not recognizing our dot product right where we've saved. So let me add variable for dot products. This, again, is just very important to understand how your blueprints work, because when it comes to having to save these things, you need to know how this works so that you can figure out what you need to actually save. Okay, so dot products. And then we need to set our dot product. Set. Okay, let's try that. Once again, let me clear the save. Just delete that. Okay, let's try it here. Save, load. There we go. Try it like this. Save, load. Now it seems to be working right. So I think that was the issue, because I'm using the dot product to calculate which side of the door we're on. That was something else that we needed to save. And we can try this over here as well. So unlock the door. Door is now unlocked. Save, load. That looks good. Now our key is coming back because we haven't set our key to save yet, or we haven't set this up to save, so it's just reloading. This door is still locked. If I put that in the right position, then that door is open. Save, load. That is good. Of course, again, this is resetting because we haven't saved that yet. But I think our doors are good. Everything looks like it's working as expected. Okay, let's go ahead and save everything and maybe close some of the stuff and move on. So next, let's work on the painting, get that saving. So let's open that up. Now, the way that this is working here, we're going to need to save a few different things. We'll use a struct again, so let's go ahead and create that. Structure, we'll call this S underscore picture frame puzzle. And the things that I need to save here are going to be the rotation, which will be a rotator. I also need to know the initial rotation. This is kind of unique for this puzzle, but I'm going to call this starting rotation. And then I will need to know if it is finalized. That will just be a Boolean. Need to know puzzle solved. And also frame position. Again, these are all specific to this puzzle. You're going to have to just test things out and see what you need to save here. Okay, so as normal with our systems here, at the start, we need to get our game instance. Now, the reason that I'm putting it here is because this is a function that I've got on a timer here, and this is a puzzle check that's running every quarter of a second. So I want to get my game instance before we do that, and I also want to do the load before that because I don't want it to constantly be trying to load every quarter of a second and getting our game instance every quarter of a second. So here we're going to get game instance, cast to game instance. Also, we really probably should have created a, or just implemented this into our interface as well, because we need to call this on most of our blueprints as well. This is such a small thing that we're casting to that it's really not going to make any difference though. But we could have maybe used an interface for this as well, but that would have changed a lot of things around. This is perfectly fine to do it like this though. So game instance ref. And then from here, we want to get should load, run a branch, and we're going to need a little bit more room here. Now, I need to create my functions, but I still want this timer to load whether we go through with this or not. So on false, I want this to load, but then I will also need to have it go through after the function that we create. So we need to get our create save data and load save data. And here we will call load save data. And then we'll still go forward with our timer here. Okay. And then I also need to add my BP save interface because we will need the send out save. So from here, we want to create save data and get our game instance and save game data. Okay, now let's work on our create save data. So we'll get our game instance ref. From that, we will get our save game ref. And then from here, we will call the struct that we created. So that was picture, what did I call it? Wait, I don't think I actually added it yet, did I? No, I didn't. Okay. So this is going to be picture frame puzzle. And we don't need that to be an array. So just single, compile and save. And now I should be able to get that picture frame puzzle. Oh, not set. Okay, and then we want to set this or these values here. And now we just plug in all of our variables. So rotation is going to be the rotation of the picture frame. Get relative rotation. And the starting rotation, I have a variable for that, so I can use that there. This, let's see, finalized, puzzle solved, and the frame position. Okay, and then we just need to return. Okay, now let's handle our load save data. So once again, we will just copy this. And we can break. And then we just need to set all of these. So get the picture frame, set relative rotation. Starting rotation, set, finalized, puzzle solved, and frame position. And then finally return. Okay, compile and save, and we should be good. So let's try that out. Let's clear our save. Just delete that. So we start fresh. All right, so this door should be locked. Now, if we solve the puzzle, this should be unlocked. Now let's save. And if we load, then our picture frame remains in the correct position. Save, load again. Looks good. Okay, let's try one more thing here. Let's delete that. I'm gonna just move this once. If I save and load, it's gonna stay there. Now, I should just have to move it one more time to open the door. And that is good. Okay, everything else seems good. Okay, so this is still locked. Move it one more time. Unlocked. Yeah, looks good. Okay, we are getting there. One more thing, we need to get the key. And the key is going to be actually a little bit tricky. This took me a little time to kind of figure out how we want to do this because it seems like it would be easy at first, but the problem with the key is this is an actor that we are destroying. So the way this works, it's very simple. We're just, when we interact with it, we're then adding the key to the character through this character reference, and then we're destroying the actor. So what we need to actually save here is we need a way to tell the save that we have destroyed this actor. And then when we reload the game, we need it to, on begin play here, we need to say, hey, we have destroyed this actor, so you need to destroy this before we actually load in, or right when we load in, I guess. So the way that we're going to do this is going to be a little bit different. First of all, we don't need an actual struct for this because I really only need to save one thing. And that one thing is just going to be a variable that just tells us if this is destroyed or not. So I need to create a variable here, and I'm going to call this key destroyed. And we need to actually set that before our destroy actor, because anything that we try to run after destroy actor is not going to actually work, because the actor is actually destroyed. So we're going to set this to true here. Okay, and then in our save game, we're going to create a variable called key state, and it's going to be a Boolean. Okay. And what I need to do is I need to basically communicate with the save game and tell it that this key state is going to be true once the actor is actually destroyed. And then when we reload, we need to check that key state. And if that is true, we need to destroy the actor. If it's not true, then we just spawn the actor like normal. So like everything else, we're going to need to get our game instance. Get game instance, cast to BP game instance, promote this to a variable, game instance ref. And then here we want to get should load, run a branch, and then we need to create our functions, create save data, load save data. And back in our event graph, if this is true, we want to load save data. And we actually don't even need our interface for this, because we're going to send the save data in this event right here. And this will make sense in a little bit. Okay, so what we need to do in create save data here, we need to first get our game instance and then get our save game ref. And from here, we want to, all we really want to do is just set this variable right here. That's all that we need to do. So we can just set, I forgot what I called that, key states. Set key state. And we're going to set this to whatever this variable is. And then from here, we will just return. Okay, and then our load save will be this. But from here, we will get key state, and we will set the key state to this variable here, the key destroyed. And then based on whether this is true or not, so we'll get a branch. And if this is true, we will destroy the actor and then return. Okay. And then we need to go back here and we need to actually send the save data here. So when we interact with it, we're going to destroy the actor. But before we destroy the actor, we need to create save data, which is the function that we just created. And then we need to get our game instance and save game data. And then we will destroy the actor. So let's first test this out, and then I'll kind of walk back through this and explain what all is going on. Let's clear that save. Delete that. Play. Okay, so we can test it out first right now just by picking up the key. And now if we save and load, the key is gone. And the key should still be saved on our character. So I should be able to open this door, which that is working. Okay, save and load again. Let's quit to main menu, continue. That looks good. Quit to main menu. Let's do a new game. Everything is reset back to the way it was. Our key is respawned. And I think we are set. Okay, so again, let me just walk through this because I know this can be a little confusing. So again, what we're doing on the key, this is specifically for an actor that is being destroyed. On begin play, we're getting the reference to our game instance, and then we are checking if we should load or not. Okay. And then if we should load, we're going to load the save data, which we've created here. When we interact with the actor, and when we interact with this actor, we destroy the actor. So we need to tell the save game that this actor has been destroyed. So that's what we're doing here by setting this variable that says key destroyed. And then we're creating that save data. So we are taking the state of this variable that is now true, and we're setting the variable in our save game to be true. And then we're sending that save data to the game instance to actually save and write the file to the hard drive. And then we're destroying the actor. So then when we come back in and we actually load into the game, then this entire actor is getting recreated, but it's running through this again. It's saying, okay, should I load? Yes, I should load. Then it's checking if this key, or it's checking the state of this key, which if it's true, then it's going to destroy the actor. If it's not true, then nothing's going to happen and it's going to spawn like normal. So I hope that makes sense. I know it might be really overwhelming. Honestly, it was really overwhelming for me when I was trying to figure all this out, and it took me a while to really kind of wrap my head around all of this. This is also one of those things, like I said earlier, that there's a lot of things that are going into this that you really have to try and wrap your head around and understand how everything is communicating between each other. It's very important that you understand how your actual blueprints for puzzles, doors, keys, anything like that in your environment, how all of that works, because you need to understand how that works in order to know what you need to save, right? When you break it down into its simplest form, it's really about taking whatever actor you want to save, for example, like our door here, and then figuring out what variables in your door you need to save. So, you know, whether you might want to save whether it's locked or not, whether it's been opened, whether it's a key has been used, things like that. And then it just comes down to taking all of those variables and adding them to your save game, and then on load, making sure that you're taking all of those variables and setting them to the current state of your actor here. All right, so I hope all that helps. I know it is a lot. I know a lot of people have been wanting this for a while. I apologize that it's taken this long, but as I think you can probably tell, this is a pretty complex subject, and I wanted to make sure that I really try to make it as robust as possible and really try to give you guys a bunch of different examples. Obviously, I can't give you an example for everything because it's just going to be different depending on what you're saving, right? So just take your time. You might have to go through it a few different times. Make sure that you're setting everything up right. It's really, really, really easy to miss like one little thing, and then that can throw off a bunch of other things. So yeah, I hope that helps. Let me know if you guys have any questions. As always, I'll be happy to help where I can. And thank you guys so much, as always, for all of your support. If you made it this far, you rock. Really, really appreciate all of your support. And I will see you guys in the next video. All right. Take care, guys.